All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we're all meeting today, wherever you may be. I am coming to you from the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri Wurrung people of the Kulin Nations. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and to elders from other nations who may be present today. And I acknowledge that we're all meeting on different lands and acknowledge the elders of those lands as well. For those who don't know me, my name is Justine Hazelwood. I am the Director and Keeper of Public Records at Public Record Office Victoria. And I'd like to welcome you to today's Records Management Network event. Just a quick reminder that this meeting is being recorded and will be made available on our website after the event. Today we have quite an exciting lineup of our commendation recipients from last year's Sir Rupert Hamer Awards. And we're looking forward to hearing about from their insights very shortly. But before we begin that, I do have a few updates from Prof. So we have a number of new retention and disposal authorities. Since we last met, several new or revised RDAs have been issued, including an RDA for the public transport function, for the planning referral function, for the Supreme Court of Victoria, the Victorian Legal Admissions Board, and the Office of the Special Investigator. And I'd like to thank all of the agencies concerned for all of their work in getting those completed. The new RDA for Human Resources Management function will be released very soon. It replaces 4 functions from PROS 0701, that's the Common Administrative RDA. And the functions are personnel management, industrial relations, occupational health and safety, and staff development. The new RDA is very much streamlined with 88 separate disposal classes in PROS 0701 reduced to 18. So that should make life a lot easier in terms of sentencing records from the human resources function. PROV will provide a linking table between the old and new RDAs and resentencing advice. Importantly, records that are already sentenced using PROS 0701 will not require resentencing. So thanks to everyone who provided feedback and advice during the development of this RDA. This is the first stage of the replacement of PROS 0701, and we are now planning the replacement of the remaining functions. We have issued a revised operational management standard, which is 2401, PROS 2401, which can be found on the Standards Framework webpage of the PROV website. This standard sets out requirements for system planning and procurement, system maintenance, system transition, processes, training and awareness, and contracting. All public officers must comply with the requirements set out in this standard in order to meet their legislative responsibilities. To assist you all to meet the requirements, a new implementation guideline has also been published. And again, thank you to those involved in the stakeholder advisory group and other interested parties for providing feedback on the revised standard. Backup technologies and records management policy. So we have revised and updated our policy advice for backup technologies and records management. Public officers are reminded that records and data held in backups are public records and must be managed accordingly. You can find that again on our website. We've released a new policy on AI technologies and record keeping to address the complexity of managing records and data created by or through the use of artificial intelligence technologies. We have also published a new topic page to provide further guidance and point to lots of useful and relevant resources. So please check that out. We have a new topic page on cybersecurity, developed from discussions with stakeholders who've had first-hand experience with cyber attacks and cybersecurity implementations, and that is now available. So again, check that out on the website. The guidance provides insights into how good records management practices can assist with cybersecurity programs. We also have a new topic page on the machinery of government changes. So we've developed new guidance for agencies on MOG changes. It lays out what needs to happen to current and non-current digital and physical records when a MOG change occurs. It is important to note that PROV must be informed of any changes to functional responsibilities. So please remember to do that in all of the busyness that comes from a MOG change. We've also published new guidance to help agencies meet their record-keeping obligations when procuring goods and services and managing the resulting contracts. These records are critical for demonstrating that procurement decisions have been based on obtaining value for money and that government has received the goods and services for which it has paid. It is not uncommon for sourcing decisions to be queried, and contract management disputes can be costly, damaging, and time-consuming, not to mention attract the attention of the Auditor General. Okay, we also have a validation program available for agencies ready to transfer digital records in the new VERS 3 VEO format. We launched it in November. The VERS 3 VEO validation program provides agencies with an assessment of their VERS 3 VEOs to ensure they are compliant with our standards before a records transfer project is undertaken. We have provided step-by-step guidance on our A to Z topic page. So if you are interested in that, please go and have a look at that. We've also developed a new staff resourcing model, which you can all use as a guide to assist with determining the number of records management staff you need for your organisation. The model sets out the minimum recommended number of dedicated records management staff required by agencies of different sizes. The guidance is aimed at agency heads, executives, and managers. So please share that with your managers, corporate directors, etc., who have oversight of records management, hiring managers, and records and information managers. So please check that out. We've had feedback that it is very useful. The model is based on a range of assumptions and definitions, so please, when you do use it, consider your own organisation's needs when looking and using that guidance. We've had a number of records transfers that may be of interest as well. I'd like to remind everyone that the annual digital transfer of permanent value cabinet in confidence records is due in the coming months. So the 2023 and 2022 Cabinet in Confidence records created after the November 2022 Victorian state election are eligible for transfer in this round. If you haven't done so already, kindly return your completed PRO 21A form to us to commence the process. The deadlines are the 30th of April this year to submit test VOs, if submitting in electronic form, and 31st of May 2024 to submit your full production set of VOs. You can contact Samantha Cordier for any questions or assistance, Samantha at PROV. We've also done a few other things that may be of interest. So starting in late 2022 and finishing in the middle of last year, we moved 10 kilometres of records, around 50,000 boxes of our collection to the State Library of Victoria's off-site storage facility in Ballarat. We selected records which are open to public access but rarely ordered for viewing and which were already packaged in standard size boxes just for ease of storage. This relocation has enabled us to free up to 10 kilometres of space in our North Melbourne repository, enough for several years of new transfers. Meanwhile, the records do remain available to the public and are couriered to North Melbourne for viewing on an as-needs basis. The other thing I'd like to remind people of is our Places of Deposit program. There are over 100 places of deposit in the form of local historical society, museums and archives that are appointed by PROV to hold temporary time expired records from government agencies in their local area. So transferring records to places of deposit, or pods as they're known, can be seen as a way of recycling records. So disposal to a pod becomes a way of keeping records accessible in local communities as opposed to destroying them. We are not suggesting that you find your local pod and then drive up a truck and dump pallets of records on their doorstep. I think that would be very unkind. So there are a few caveats. So these pods cannot accept permanent records, as these are still required to be transferred to PROV, or some of the very few what are known as Class A pods. Those are places of deposit that are secure and are able to take permanent records. So those are located in Bendigo, Geelong, or Beechworth. And so you may have the option of transferring records to those local pods if you're in those areas, but please have a chat to us first about what's appropriate to go to those collections. Also, the pod has to agree to take the records. As we all know, space is at a premium, and that goes for pods as well. There are some records that would hold no value to them for their research collection. So though their pod needs to actually agree to take the records. And PRV has to agree that the records are appropriate to be stored at a pod. For example, even if records are temporary time expired, they may hold personal or private information, which is not appropriate to give to a pod. So have a chat to us if you do have records that you think would be eligible, and we'll direct you to an appropriate pod, and you can have a conversation with them about making those records, keeping those records alive in the community. The benefits of moving appropriate records to pods include freeing up storage space and potentially saving a few dollars by moving or diverting records from APROS storage to a willing pod. The benefits to the pod becoming custodians of the records allows research and new lease of life to records in local areas that they actually relate to. You can find out more about our Places of Deposit program through our website. It's under About Us, Community Collections and Places of Deposit. Finally, just a reminder to sign up to our newsletter, Prov Bites, to stay up to date with news and resources. As you know, we have a wide range of guidance, reports and case studies on our website, as well as 2 free online learning modules and 2 free organisational self-assessment tools. So please check those out. And now we move to our exciting lineup of speakers. If you have any questions for our speakers, please ask them in the Q&A section. Each speaker will have time at the end of their presentation to answer them. Our administration team are online to help with any queries and or to deliver your questions to the speaker. So our first speaker today is Kristy Plozza from West TAFE. Kristy has a background in environmental science and inadvertently gained a career in document control and records management. I think that's a common story, coming into records management sideways. When she travelled to London in 2005, working for Multiplex Construction. Returning to her hometown of Warrnambool, a position arose at West TAFE as a records officer, where today she is creating processes using guidance from PROV to improve all aspects of records management. Her goal is to lead the way and guide work colleagues to correct records management principles. She's here to share her project on implementing and embedding a new records management strategy for West TAFE. Everyone, please welcome Kristy.
I think you're still on mute, Kristy.
You're on mute, Kristy.
There we go. Sorry, I thought I'd turned it off. Can you see my screen? Oh, can you see my screen? Yeah, oh, great. So, hi, sorry, I'm Kristy Plozza. I'm the records officer at TAFE. Well, I'm talking about our New Beginnings project today that we submitted for the Rupert Hamer Award. I'll start off with a bit of an introduction. West TAFE identified a need to improve its records management responsibilities to support our business needs. A number of challenges came to light when we did an independent assessment, and they realised that they weren't meeting their records management needs, and corrective action was required. I always like a nice inspirational quote, so I'll have a couple of these through my slides. And suddenly you know it's time to start something new and trust the beginnings. Just a little bit about where we are. Not a lot of people know about us at Warrnambool. We're in the southwest at the end of the Great Ocean Road. West TAFE have been a specialist in education dating back to the 1853. We have over 150 nationally recognised qualifications and short courses, including trades, nursing, aged care, beauty, cookery and arts. And we have over 300 working staff, working part-time, full-time and casual. We have 5 campuses, our main campus being in Warrnambool, the CBD, and then we have another campus out at Sherwood Park. Sherwood Park's mostly horticulture and construction, and then we have a campus at Portland, Hamilton and Colac. Just into the project, New Beginnings project. When I arrived at West TAFE, I was the first records officer at West TAFE. So I got to create the journey here at West TAFE. And this is why the project's called New Beginnings, because basically it's a new beginning for West TAFE and records management. It's a fresh start for us here. I submitted an application for the Rupert Hamer Award because I believe it was a great story. We're literally starting afresh here. And with the help of Prov, I've been able to make some big changes in records management. So just a bit of a timeline. 2006, West TAFE did a records management archiving scoping study. And then 2009 in November, I started on 0.6. I'm only 3 days a week. So I came in, had strong records management skills, and I just wanted to change everything. I sort of started to get going, and then COVID hit in March 2020. So then we were all sent off site, and that was my time of researching, writing processes and procedures and getting ready for back on site. 2021, we introduced the records management essential training tool to all our staff, which we use at our annual training session. 2020, we've started a permanent records program. We've introduced content manager pilot program in 2020. 2020 or 23, we started the recycling program, and then we are continuing to roll out with content manager. And this year, we're concentrating on our digital strategy with the help of the employment of a new digital technician. Where to start? So basically, at the start, I just got back to basics. I'd come from a construction and oil and gas background. This was my first education and public records. So I went straight to the source. I went to Prov. I read everything I could on the website. I read all relevant legislation to become an expert, basically, in what I needed to do. Then I reached out and found like-minded work colleagues in the VERMAG group and the Records Management Network. I gathered as much information as I could. I talked to the business departments, and I determined all the records management issues, and then I created the processes. As being that we're at the start, literally every records management aspect we had an issue with. So basically, I just started afresh. We realised that we had no records management dedicated staff member, which now there was me. We had no single storage method or system approach. We had difficulties at accessing and retrieving information. Individual areas had developed their own practices because there was no standard, no procedures to follow. Key business systems weren't integrated, which we've done a lot with now. We also had no documented disposal program or archiving program, which we've created all now. The record storing facilities weren't equipped for storing records. We had no real consideration into digital records, and also staff had a lack of knowledge. So we've introduced a lot of training programs now to help staff. So start with the projects. I break it down into a lot of small projects, and I'll just talk about one project today, which is the storage. But I developed all the policies, procedures and guidelines. I developed and empowered staff through training and communication. I created a records management strategy. I did a full review and audit of all records in storage. We've literally held on to everything since the beginning of time, so that was a long process. Managing all the hard copy and electronic copies, and designating an APROS storage facility. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about project one, which is what I call the storage. So my project goals for this was to set some firm guidelines, reduce our storage costs, which were quite huge, access records that were overdue for retention, create a destruction register, creating archiving processes and training awareness. Now, a lot of people are probably thinking, oh, we've all done all this before, but we're basically starting at the start, and that's where I had to start. So this is just a couple of pictures of before, during and after. When I first went down to the storage facility, this is what I was struck with. And basically the procedure for archiving was put it in a box and put it in the shed. So now we have everything recorded after I've done a full audit, and this is the before, during, after of just one shed that I've done. So the achievements is now everything is categorised. We've published now an archiving process, which all staff have training in, and we've also did a little mini project of recycling 1,000 archive boxes. This is another example of before, during and after. Again, we kept everything since the beginning of time. We went through it and sorted it out, and yeah, that's the end process. Okay, so part of the storage process, I have a background in environmental science as well, so I wanted to also make a difference with sustainability. We recycled over 1,000 boxes, which may seem small, but over time it was a saving of $7,000. So we delayed a lot of boxes being sent to Shred X. My next graph just shows you some of the storage costs. The orange line is where we were heading with our storage costs. This is the figures over here. This is actual figures of what our storage was costing. This is what would happen if we did nothing on the orange line, which you can see the figures are quite extravagant. The blue line is where we're at today, and this is where we've made a difference. We still have a couple of sheds that I need to still sort through, but this is a projection of where we're going. And then the grey line is what if we were 100% APROS storage. It just shows that over time we'd eventually have zero storage costs. This graph was used in a business case to show executive and managers just how much we were spending on storage, which they were quite shocked with. As part of the storage project, I created a whole new archiving process. Previously, people would just put things in a box. So I'd take pictures of what I'd found, and some things were quite extraordinary, like I'd found cigarettes and matches, and I'm sure we've all found boxes with files in them like this. So it was creating an awareness training program for all staff, which we do every year, and a discussion point in our South West TAFE newsletter, and also creating a records management project page to get information out to our staff so that this kind of thing wasn't happening. And now we sort of audit every archive box before it is off to storage, because we've still got a lot of hard copies going on here. We also, our storage facility wasn't an APROS approved storage facility. They'd tried to get approval, but they were denied. So we now moved all our boxes off to a APROS approved storage facility. We went down and had a tour of the facility. So I encourage everybody to go and have an actual tour of where you store your records, because it's actually quite an amazing experience to see how they manage such a large volume of records. Permanent records were a bit of an issue here as well. I was finding them all over the place. I did up a business case so that we could have a permanent record storage area, which is now the old Warrnambool Jail. So it's a very secure place. We store all our permanent records on here until we're ready to move digital. We also use this as our collection point for our APROS storage facility. Some of the challenges we face was records awareness. A lot of people, when you're coming in and you're the first person, you know, you've got to get the information and share it with people, and it was quite difficult creating that records awareness, and it took a lot of time. Change management is another issue. I had to set some clear goals using the PROV standards and evidence of the legislation requirements to help with that change management. We still have a problem with resourcing, which that resourcing tool that PROV just released was a great tool to help with getting extra resources. So workload, I'm only 0.6, so it's only me still at the moment. So I just learn to break the task down and just chip away at things as I can. And then time management, yeah, just learning to prioritise and action time management strategies, because as we know, it's quite a big task to do. Public records website information, I can't speak highly enough of. It's a great source of information, which really helped with the beginning of this records management journey for me. It's got everything that you need, easy to follow standards, policies and RDAs. I've literally read everything. I use the records keeping assessment tool and the measurement tool regularly as well. And I also did a little bit of research into other public records offices sort of all over Australia, and in comparison, we've just got an amazing records information. Some of the other sites and states, you know, I think fall a bit behind. So I encourage everyone to use PROV as much as you can. In conclusion, we still have a long way to go. There's only so much we can do with what we've got, but you know, we're doing everything we can to align with the PROV resources. Our next step for us is digitalisation strategy. We're in the process of hiring a new ICT digitalisation expert, which will help me with moving into that strategy, and just continuing refining and updating existing processes with PROV's assistance. So it's just the beginning for us. Another little quote: we've come a long way, but we still have a little further to go. And that's about it from me. Just short and sweet.
Thank you, Kristy. That's awesome. We've got a comment in the chat. I'm not sure that the Q&A is working. Some people have said that it's not, so feel free to post in the chat if you have a question. There's a comment from Bethany, fascinating graph. So many organisations shove boxes out of APROS without any real management plan for them. That's where the Pro 61 is key. So much money can be saved. There's a question from Arthur about is interested in the box recycling.
Yeah.
I guess it's okay if you have your own storage initially and destroy the content. But if the boxes are already at external storage centre, it may not be practical or possible.
No, yeah, that's true. Yeah, ours were all internal. So like I said, we're starting from the beginning. So I basically had 10 sheds full of boxes that weren't recorded. So I reused as many of those boxes as I could. If you are, we've reached our limit now. I've only got about 20 left. So yeah, we won't have any more now. So, but we got to 1,000, which I was proud of, and we saved a bit of money. So that's good.
We've got another comment. Lots of thank yous. Excellent work. Thanks for sharing. I have. Yeah, I know, we're always nervous. I have a bit of a question in terms of being the first person to be a records person at South West TAFE. Did you have some approaches you used to get a seat at the table? Did you go stalk people, or?
It was, I love coming. I have lots of experience. So I loved that I was the first records officer at South West TAFE. I just came in and just chipped away at it. I just gained, like I said, gained as much information as I could, and tackled each task. I literally had started with a spreadsheet. I wrote down all the issues, created a plan, and just worked off that. And I still have that same spreadsheet that I add to it. And that's sort of like my personal, to see where I'm at. I link that in with a lot of the other Prov resources, but that's basically how it works. And like I said, I'm only 0.6, so we're about to get another full-time records officer and another digital expert to help with the digitalisation process. So, and I've done a lot of business cases to get that support, because it's been quite hard to, as you know, to convince people that you need more people in records management, but we're getting there. So, but yeah, we've done a lot in such a short time with what resources we've got. So yeah, we just chip away at it and just keep going until we get to a point where everyone else is at. We're still early days yet.
Yep, fantastic. Lots of people are very impressed with what you've achieved. One more question from Sharon. Did you make all the records digital, or have you kept them paper? She has a similar challenge.
All existing records are still paper at our APROS facility. Our next step, we've just started, we've joined Content Manager last year or the year before. We're still in that, moving forward with that digital process. That's our concentration this year when we're hiring a new ICT digitalisation expert. That's our focus this year. Me trying to clear out 30 years of paper-based records, I'm still doing that. I'm still got my finger in that at the minute. We've still got a couple of sheds to sort through. That's why we're not at zero with our graph. Yeah, we've still got a lot of work to do, but we're at the beginning. That's why our project was called New Beginnings. Still a lot to do. Still a lot of hard copy records. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that, Kristy. And
thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristy. And thank you for all the nice plaudits for Prov, the checks in the mail.
I can't speak highly
enough. It's a joke,
enough.
of course.
It's great. It's a great website. I had to put that in there because, like I said, I did actually investigate other states, and yeah, we're sort of well above, you know, information. You've got it all. You've got it sorted. So yeah.
Oh, that's great feedback to hear. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I know some of the people who created that website are in the meetings, so it's very gratifying for them.
Yeah, they've done a great job. Yeah, no, yeah. It's fantastic.
That's great. Okay, we'll move on to our next speaker, who is Kate Sullivan from the Department of Education. Kate found her way into records management through a love of all things historical and a professional interest in accountability and transparency in public administration. Since arriving at the Department of Education in 2019, Kate has been focused on continuing and building on the work of generations of records managers. So somewhat different situation than South West TAFE. Building on the work of generations of records managers past to ensure the state's public education records are preserved and remain accessible. She and her amazing team have had their work cut out for them. And today she's going to speak on the department's project on 150 years of public education. So over to you, Kate.
Thank you, Justine. And yeah, although we're obviously a very different organisation and in a different position than South West TAFE, there were still a lot of very familiar themes and possibly even some familiar sites in some of those pictures that we saw. So thank you for the presentation, Kristy, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. So yeah, I wanted to talk about our 150 years of public education project, which was actually in 2022, but it was obviously kicked off to celebrate the anniversary of the Public Education Act, which was the introduced free, compulsory and secular education for all children between the ages of 6 and 15 years. And it was the first Public Education Act in the world and the first in what were then the colonies. So it was pretty significant. And there were numerous events throughout the year. We had, Education Week events. There was curriculum materials developed, but this project was actually led by a records manager, my predecessor in the role, Cara Krush, and she saw this as a once in a career opportunity to preserve our historical records as well, and she wasn't going to let this pass her by without taking full advantage of it. So just wanted give her a shout out, as she was very much the driving force behind this program of work, and of which me and my team are now carrying on. So there are the department since 1872. There've been well over 2,000 schools in operation, and there are still currently 1,500 schools that are currently public schools that are in operation across the state. But the focus for our project, and in particular the records focus of this project, was in getting historical records out of the oldest schools in the state. And this map just shows you a little idea of the distribution. The vast majority of these were in regional cities and regional areas, and they were all primary schools, and I can go into a bit of education history if there's time later on to explain why that is. It was something I didn't know. It's very interesting. So the collections, the records were very dispersed across the state, and in some places in quite out of the way places. And very much following the path of colonisation and industrialisation across the state. So out to the east in timber cutting areas, out in the southwest in rural and agricultural areas, and then of course in the northwest and some northeast areas following the gold. So a little bit then on the type of records, the type of permanent records that we were wanting to retrieve from these schools. The most valuable, or we think the most valuable and most interesting, are enrolment records. So this is a digitised image of one such, a pupil register, and these are really fascinating records. They give a really rich sense of some of the industries operating in these different areas, as well as the student name, date of birth, parent names, address and occupation. And these are enormously valuable for people wanting to do their family histories, or even individuals who might have had very disjointed childhoods. They might have been to many different primary schools or schools throughout their childhood. They may not have a really strong sense of where they were exactly, but they might remember the name of the school. And if they're able to, one of the things that my team really gets a lot of satisfaction of is being able to help people put these puzzle pieces together through enrolment records. Another type of permanent record are inspectors' report books. So these were departmental inspectors going around inspecting each school, and they'd be often focusing on buildings and grounds, as well as observations of school organisation and teaching. And this particular report is from 1915, and it states, among other things, that there was a carefully conceived assembly that was carried out, but a few pupils paid insufficient heed to the drum beats during the marching. Although he was very impressed with the singing, it was a pleasing feature of the marching. But then further on, he makes some observations around the grade 3 in this school that requires extra attention to reading and spelling. So they're fascinating records, and I can't at all claim that I've never gone down the rabbit hole of of trying to decipher the handwriting and find out what was happening at different schools at different times. One of the other permanent record types that we're very interested in are school council and mothers clubs and other types of committee meetings. So these are records of school governance, and they obviously will have a lot to say around how the school's operating, but we find mothers club records are particularly interested, and yes, they were called mothers clubs up until relatively recently, but they're particularly interesting because, unlike the school councils, they often had much more of a focus on the children and students and the school community, and so there's a lot of richness to be found in there, as well as, of course, the perennial focus on a lot of fundraising. So they're really a really fascinating, rich source. So one of the things that we're doing through the project is obviously digitising these records to make them more accessible, and you saw some examples of what our in-house digitisation program is producing, really beautiful, high quality digital images of these records. But we also use the anniversary year as an opportunity to digitise existing collections, so from Prov, as well as collections from State Library and other places. We've been publishing some of the oldest records online. We hope to do more of that in the future, but we're also retaining a lot of the others in our in-house school digital archive, and this enables our team to discover and retrieve those records much faster than we would have previously, to be able to respond to requests from members of the public who are doing those family history or personal history tasks, as well as internal requests to support legal requests or as part of work that we do to support the National Redress Scheme. And we also being able to use these records to support individual schools who are wanting to celebrate key milestones, 50th, 100 and 150th anniversaries. The other big category of record that we're retrieving, permanent record that we're retrieving from schools, are photographs, and I've included quite a few in the next few slides, just because I think they're amazing, and again, they're just giving this really rich sense of what schools were like over the years, but also, you know, in different areas as well. They're just really wonderful to look at. And particularly, there's one coming up in a moment. I love the marching band. We had, as part of the celebrations, we also had a number of these images sort of enlarged and blown up on light boxes as to use as displays, you know, to really feature this wonderful history that we've been retrieving out of schools and historical societies, and in some cases people's garages. The project has really prompted a lot of community engagement as well, of people coming forward with records or photographs, or even, you know, other memories of schooling. I think I've got another couple of photos coming through, just showing, yeah, difference in economic environments. The middle image was from an inner city school, clearly from a poorer area. The image on the right hand was a group photo of teachers from Malden Primary School during the heyday of the gold rush, and you can just see from their very natty outfits that they were obviously doing quite well out of the gold rush. These were some of the images that have come through from the community, including really fascinating image in the middle there at the bottom, which was a student who is suffering from polio, but being able to maintain their schooling, and the image on the left was from a TB, tuberculosis hospital. So they're students working on the covered in veranda, with, you know, to get lots of fresh air and sunlight. So how are we getting all of these records, as well as coming forward from members of the general public? This is building on work that we actually started in 2019 off the back of a Victorian Auditor General's office audit, Never Waste a Good Audit. We had some really important recommendations from that work to the department, saying we needed to do more to manage records and to support schools to manage records. And it's been really great to see how the department heard and understood that message and put some significant resources into our records function, and particularly into what is now our school records management program, which involves us sending small teams of records and records managers and archivists out to schools to physically archive records. We retrieve the permanent value records, and we support schools to dispose of time expired records. And very much like Kristy's experience at Southwest, schools are great at hanging on to things just in case, or they're not sure, or they never get time to do it because they've got their hands full with teaching children. So we're, you know, the number of times we'll go into a school and find finance records from 1975, and we can give the schools the confidence to go ahead and dispose of their time expired records. So they're really just focusing on the things that they need to worry about. So we're also, through this work, you know, rediscovering history, things that schools didn't even know they had. So this was just an example of one. The school thought they had one pupil register. Once the team had gone through, they found that they actually had a complete set, which was just amazing. So and those records were until the team had done that, those records were completely inaccessible. Nobody knew they existed. They've now been brought into the program, digitised, and as you'll hear about in a moment, they'll be making their way to Prov very soon. So rest of the progress to date, we've provided that archiving support to over 360 open schools so far, including in our anniversary year, those 165 of our oldest schools. So they're the ones that we really wanted to get to retrieve the oldest records from there. And the photos on this screen are from a school in the Ballarat region. The records in that photo are all historical permanent records. They include photos that date back to 1879 and student enrolment records that date back to 1877. And this school actually opened in 1857, so that's not bad. And as I say, they were previously inaccessible, but yeah, they're going to be available very soon. So we've digitised over 660 collections, and they're either going to be made available online for those oldest records, or they'll be discoverable and accessible in our school digital archive, and that's over 100,000 unique digitised records. So next step for us now is what we're incredibly excited about, which is our school records transfer program. And this is a 3-year partnership with Prov. We commenced last September. We're aiming to transfer 500 plus. I want as many as we can, as many as Prov will take, because as you've heard, we've got over 2,000 schools, so there's plenty to go around. And our first transfer actually happened in February with our first 11 schools. And I included this photo here because I thought probably unique among any other audience. This audience will appreciate just how exciting this picture is. It was our first trolley load of records, all boxed up, barcoded or QR coded, ready to go, ready to get collected by the courier and sent off to Prov. So there were many celebrations over that trolley load, and there's going to be many more to come after that. But yeah, it's a very exciting program, and we're really thrilled to it's the culmination of work that we well, really that's been going on for decades prior, with the department collecting these records from schools as they close, but we're now able to, through off the back of the audit, off the back of the excellent work of our 150th program, continuing with our school records management program, we're able to proactively go out, retrieve these records from schools, and preserve them, get them where they need to be, so as people can access them and enjoy them. So thank you. That's really it from me. Happy to take any questions or yeah.
Thanks, Kate. That was really amazing. I love those photos and the fashion they show of the eras. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
We've got a kind of question comment from Ruth. She said, "Thanks, Kate, for sharing this fabulous story. Did you get an insight on how children fared during World War II? Cardinia Shire Council preserved records of temporary compulsory possession of land for the war services and its return to owners. Were great to patch stories together to create a fuller story about a family living at that time." She really enjoyed the shows, the Sullivans. I think we all did. We're probably showing our age with that one though. I wonder if
I'm no
this
relation.
sourced information. Yeah. So yeah, I suppose yeah, what kind of insights did you get about children in those eras? And
yeah. Look, as say, I have to resist the temptation to actually read the records. So yeah, I've not delved into it, but certainly we've got records from schools and also within the department around both in during the First and Second World Wars of school grounds being used for war purposes. We've got a photo actually in the hallway of our main building of I think it's Uni High. There's University High School. Their oval there being used to house soldiers during the war. So yeah, it's all there. It's all to be discovered, and yeah, hopefully people can go ahead and actually do that research now. And yeah,
sounds like a fascinating research project for someone. Lots of people saying fascinating presentation. Reminds us that we are responsible for our slice of public history. Very much so. Thanks for sharing. Great work. Love the pictures. Yeah.
Actually, just on that, another event as part of the anniversary, speaking of history, was we had a really great partnership with the Victorian Historical Society, who ran an education themed conference. Their annual conference was focused on education history, and there was a really wonderful publication coming out of that. We've got a few copies, so if anybody would like to have a copy, I'd be very happy to share.
Chase you up.
Yeah, a copy of the conference proceedings. Yeah.
Fantastic. One of my questions, I suppose, is that given that such a long history and collection, what do you think was the most challenging moments of the project?
Oh, look, there were many and varied, but really it's probably just the logistics of getting around to the schools. We've got getting our teams out to places, places like Mildura, where we have to send our intrepid archiving team up in a little plane. As well as all the boxes and supplies, and then getting the records back. So I mean the logistics. And the other thing is, as I say, schools are busy environments, and they're focused on teaching students, keeping them safe, making their environments as functional as possible. And often that means record storage is relegated to the areas that are not fit for student habitation. So, we're often working in conditions that are not ideal, certainly for records, and sometimes not ideal for people either. And so, keeping the team safe during those exercises as well is a really high priority for us, and the way we're engaging with schools and so preparing them for what the visit's going to involve and what we need, and how they can support us to get in and get out basically as soon as possible, so they can get on with what they need to do.
Fantastic. Now someone does have their hand up. Looks like Melanie Hart. You won't have access to audio or video, but perhaps if you can pop your question in the chat, if you've got one. Other than that, I'll thank you very much, Kate, and I'll pass back to Justine.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. I mean, I've been watching this project for a number of years now, and it's fantastic to see. And I think probably one of my the primary school I went to is probably in the collection that you've been looking into, because I from memory that was started in the 1870s. So that I keep meaning to go and see if I can find anything. So mental note, must do that. Thanks so much, Kate. All right, our final speakers today are Ruth Edge and Alison Edwards on behalf of Cardinia Shire Council. Ruth comes, I'm sure everybody knows Ruth. Ruth comes with a 25-year tenure as a passionate advocate for the profession. Her leadership spans multiple sectors, including health, mining, unions and government, amassing invaluable experience. She's a dedicated board member of RIMPA, and has represented RIMPA in a Royal Commission, led a team that recovered over $400 million for a mining company. Ruth's efforts have garnered 5 Sir Rupert Hamer Awards, 1 commendation and 2 RIMPA Awards. And beyond awards, she served as a judge, advisory board member, and currently as an advisor for the University of South Australia, continuing her dedication to advancing the profession. Alison has worked in the information management sector since 1986 and is the current team leader at Cardinia. She commenced her career at the City of Greater Dandenong, gaining valuable experience by undertaking many different information roles. In 2006, she made the move to Cardinia, where she was able to undertake and learn more technical skills. These skills, together with the benefit of experience, common sense, and the desire to achieve the best system possible for her users, proved to be of great assistance in this successful move to paper independence and Microsoft 365. Today, Alison and Ruth will share their award notable digital transformation experience within the Cardinia Shire Council. So welcome to Ruth and Alison.
Thanks.
Thank you. Alison is going to share our presentation.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I'd just like to welcome everybody to today's presentation from Alison and myself. Really enjoyed the presentations from Kristy and from Kate. And I acknowledge Alison. Alison is very modest, but she really established a good foundation prior to me joining Cardinia Shire Council, because she went through a lot of the work that Kristy experienced. So lots of the things that were happening there for Kristy, Alison was a part of in establishing a good foundation so that we could do this digital transformation journey. So kudos to her. Over the next 15 minutes, we're going to have a look at the challenges faced in our M365 migration journey and what we experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're going to have a look at the approach that we took as a project team and the results that we achieved as a consequence. So as a bit of background, I want you to imagine the workplace that Alison and I saw ourselves in 2013. So we had paper everywhere. We needed to undertake a paper audit, to be able to start that digital transformation, to get to the point to where we now have, or Alison and Cardinia Shire Council now have digital efficiency. The clatter of printers are just a distant memory, and paper is just a thing of the past. So we were able to invest that time and that effort to be able to get there because we had really strong leadership, and we had a culture that our predecessors and our CEO, our Director of Corporate Services, and our Chief Information Officer had worked hard, along with, I have to give credit to Tim Newbegin, who was the Manager of Information Management prior to myself. They had worked hard on building a records management culture. If you've got a good records management culture and you've got leadership from the top that are leading the charge, you're really set up to succeed. And that's what we had. We were able to transition from paper-based processes to digital workflows because we had that leadership, but we also had a team that had the courage and commitment to step out of their comfort zone, to work in collaboration with IT and the other areas of council that we needed to collaborate with, do the things that we needed to do to really position ourselves so that we could do the M365 migration from CM9. We prior to that, we had set up automated mail management with artificial intelligence. Pretty scary moment for the team because there was that fear factor of, will I lose my job? Will I enjoy it? Will I hate it? What's going to happen? But we overcome all of that to be able to achieve what we set out to achieve. And Alison's going to share what our challenges were and how we addressed it.
Okay, thank you. Over to me. So yes, we thought we had a really excellent records management system. We were using Content Manager, and we did, like, we were doing stats, and over 50% of the records created across the organisation were going into the EDRMS. We did know, though, that there were, so about 20,000 were going in and about 20,000 were going onto network drives, which what we could tell from stats, but we couldn't see what they were. So we'd done all these things. We had become paper independent. We had looked at everyone's processes, and the whole organisation had got really excited, and they were now doing things digitally. We moved to a new building, but we wanted to improve and we wanted to do better. We wanted to be able to, records manage more, all of our records. So our challenge by our CIO was then given to us to investigate SharePoint Online and the whole range of M365. So our project was, Outlook. We did EDRMS part of the project, so trim to SharePoint, and we wanted to be able to enhance that experience for our users so that they didn't have to use another system. They could just use the system that they felt comfortable with. So after Ruth and we did some assessment or some compliance. We looked at the compliance of SharePoint. We were tasked with that to see if that we could be compliant with records management criteria that we needed to be compliant with. And we couldn't. We chose we used going SharePoint Online and using AvePoint as our records management tools. We couldn't say that it wasn't compliant, and so the report went to council. It had support from leadership, and the decision was made that we were going to undertake this project and move totally to M365. So it wasn't just us, the records team in the project. We worked very closely with the information services team as well. And we did 4 major things. We moved all our emails to Outlook Online, so Exchange Online. We changed over our fleet of laptops. We migrated ended up being 5 terabytes of data from Content Manager to SharePoint, and we refreshed our intranet at the same time. So comms were involved in our project as well. Because we knew that M365 and SharePoint would give us a full oversight and more control and be able to records manage all the records produced by our organisation. So we started this. This was a 18-month project. We started working on it in 2009. It was accepted by the organisation. The leadership team was driven from the top down, as Ruth said, which was great. We had all our streams in place. We had our communication stream. We had our information technology stream, and we had our records management stream. And off we went. Back over to you, Ruth.
Thank you, Alison. So as Alison said, our approach was to assess how the users were using functionality of the existing EDRMS, CM9, and review its compliance capabilities against M365 and PROV requirements. And I have to say, yes, I was resistant to that initial change because I thought, why on earth are we doing this? We've just been recognised by PROV for the work we had done with records management, our records management program to date. But what we didn't know was what we didn't know, which was what we didn't have access to, just, how much of that we were missing. Anyway, so we went into the project, shifted our mindsets to be positive and collaborative with the IT team. We worked together, we established a project team, we followed project management protocols, which is the project initiation, documentation, getting a scope of works approved, sitting down and working through our stakeholder analysis, our communication plan, getting other parts of the organisation involved to support us so that it would be promoted right across the organisation, and we would get investment as far as and wide as we could across the organisation to support this project. We needed to take 2 people offline for the project, so we had appointed our business analyst to project lead and manage the whole project. We took Alison off for about 80% of the time. So we tried to work within our existing resources. And I think we were able to do that because we'd introduced artificial intelligence into our project work. It freed up time for us. So in total, we had 4 officers that supported data cleansing and user acceptance testing. We shared some of that work between the other business areas, and business as usual activity over a 9-month period continued to be met until the May 2020 go live date. Now in March 2020, we all went offline because COVID hit. The amazing thing was, because we had been digitally already set up to be able to work from anywhere, we were able to pick up our computers, take our laptops to home, set up home offices and continue uninterrupted to deliver this project. So the project didn't stop. We got can you go to the next slide, please, Alison? So we did our data and information governance modelling. We mapped it and then implemented it into M365 with AvePoint and PROV. I have to give a big shout out to Peter Francis because he really held our hand during this time. He was very helpful. We also had Circle T, who worked with us to design a workflow engine for us, and Exity, who continued to keep mail going as per normal, so we didn't stop work, and Open Office and Technology One, as well as other service partners. So when you're part of a transformation project like this, you do have to contact all the different stakeholders, the external stakeholders, and time manage to get them to work with you so that you're able to go live with, and everything works smoothly.
We had 21 integrations with Content Manager, which we had to then decide whether we were going to keep or pare down and work with all those vendors.
Thanks, Alison. So we had our new users migrate their desktop content to CM9 to maintain their key records, and we worked with them steadily Would you say 9 months, Alison? Sort of from the beginning that we were, or pretty early on.
We set up a group. What do we call them? We set up a power user group to help us with the project, to communicate with their teams, bring back questions to us, and they helped us with UAT.
And over time, we were ready then to do the migration of 5 terabytes of metadata, and the records. And then when we commenced with a user acceptance testing and a Q&A on the 20th of May, it happened. We did a whole lot of training, and we set up PowerPoint and MP4 training in bite-sized chunks to help people to become familiarised with the functionality of the SharePoint system. We got help from volunteers to do the voiceovers. So what we did was Alison and I designed and filmed, or what do you call, recorded the movement and of the training that we wanted to deliver, and gave a story script to our volunteers who did the voiceovers. We ended up with hands up from directors to managers to officers to people that wanted to tell jokes, and we let them, and wanted to show their musical prowess, and we let them. And it was fun. So we created a bit of fun into the project. And then we began a 3-week intensive virtual classroom training for the whole organisation. So everyone within the organisation got training through Teams. We followed that up with tailored training for teams who wanted to have tailored training, a bit more intensive training. And we found that because Alison and I were only about 3 weeks ahead of everybody else with what we knew about the functionality and capabilities of SharePoint, we actually had our users who were looking at functionality and sharing that functionality with us. So it got to be a bit of fun where we were teaching them, but they were also sharing with us as well, which was fantastic. The network drives were completely shut down in December of 2020. We had tried to shut them down from 2013. So just want you to take heart that while you might close down drives for adding documents, but you're allowing access to them to view, and you might have exceptions for people who actually need to have access to a drive. So you've still got your network drives functioning. You can actually shut them down once you get functioning with M365. Records Help Service desk was established for ongoing user support, and that continues to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Over to you, Alison.
Okay, results and benefits that we realised. Now, some of these things we knew we thought would happen, and then we also had other unexpected benefits that we didn't know would happen. So records management for our end users became part of their normal business process, and became embedded. So especially, people that process a lot of documents. And we've really noticed it this week, actually, because SharePoint is having a bit of a global meltdown this week, unfortunately. And our users are like, we can't do our work because we don't have SharePoint. So we found a workaround, but it's really highlighted how SharePoint is embedded into their business processes. I found that the people, the users across the organisation that work with documents and collaborate on documents and work together really love SharePoint, because you can have as many people in a document at any time as you like, and collaboration happens, and there's no check-in, check-out issues. All our desktops, people no longer store things on desktops because it's now part of their OneDrive, which we can access if we need to.
So Alison, just adding, we modified our business classification scheme based on functions and activities, and we built the structure of SharePoint libraries, so SharePoint sites and libraries with the business classification scheme. So it is a proof that you can use it, and it still offers a strong foundation for keeping your records.
Yes. So we can manage the document lifecycle with AvePoint cloud governance. We can also manage the team. We started using Teams as well, so we can manage the Teams lifecycle. We can share externally now with no extra add-ons needed. You can do that directly from SharePoint, and it keeps a record of what has been shared. We've also, incidentally to this, to protect that sharing, we have turned on data loss prevention this week. So things like PII can be protected and prevented from being shared. End user adoption. So I find that a lot of people, when they start now, induction is easier. They're confident with the system. They go, oh yeah, I've used SharePoint before. It's just more a matter of showing them where things are and how to work out how to find things. Costs are reduced. We don't have two systems. We just have SharePoint online. And positive interdepartmental relations between IS and IM are ongoing. We're sort of like one big team now. There's a lot of communication happens between our two teams. And another thing that is not on this slide is the reduction in archiving. So you find you didn't expect it, but people don't get paper, so they can't put it in a box, and you don't get boxes arriving on your desk to be archived. And filing, no filing, only electronic filing. Back to you.
So the words trust, respect, reliance, support, teamwork, communication all resonated with the project team. And there's something that the information management and the information services team continue to show as part of their collaboration with each other. You will find now that IM and IT, or they call themselves IS, are working with each other every day. There is such a close relationship now that has formed because of this project. They recognise that, particularly now they're working with an M365 environment, they are absolutely dependent on each other to ensure that the security and the quality of what goes into the system and how the system is used. They're dependent on each other to ensure that happens. Another thing they did was they learnt to understand and appreciate one another's language and concerns. Often the language that IT used was misunderstood by records and information management, and vice versa. But they come to understand that words were used that had different meaning, and so they needed to explain to each other or confirm that they understood each other. And that's, from what Alison tells me, I've been away now for 8 or 9 months, that has continued, and the team continues to forge on and do amazing things. They understand that they're dependent on each other for the successes to be realised, and they're going on to bigger and better. I know one of the products that they brought in just shortly after that time was VOTA's regulatory compliance assessment tool, which is an absolutely fantastic tool. Alison told me has been expanded to introduce management of artificial intelligence, and what was the other one, Alison?
There's 2 new modules. You're right. Phil told. Yeah, I can't remember the other one.
But they keep on looking for new innovation and supporting each other and developing what's best. What are the best outcomes for the organisation and the customers? So I've got if I had a hat, I'd take my hat off to Cardinia Shire Council, to Alison and a team, because they just keep on kicking those goals. So the journey continues. Over to you, Alison, because it's your journey.
My journey now, with some minor hitches like SharePoint this week. But anyway, it continues. We continue to work together. We continue to learn about IT speak and IT processes that we didn't know were in place, and we occasionally trip over each other, just because, we don't know what's going on, but we work it out, and we move forward. I've actually recently been given access to Active Directory, which is amazing in itself, and because we use Active Directory security groups for SharePoint security, and that is one of IM's responsibilities. So by embracing change, not being afraid, I remember we first went live with SharePoint, I was completely overawed, overwhelmed. As Ruth said, we felt like we were just 3 weeks in front of everybody else in the organisation, trying to scramble and learn. And I look back now and go, yeah, well, we got there. We've learnt so much, and just things keep changing. So I would encourage our story to serve as inspiration. You can do it. It is overwhelming. There's so much to learn, and it keeps changing, so you have to keep learning.
And while we can't talk dollars, we did not have a huge budget, and you don't need a huge budget to do this. You've got to have courage. You've got to have the will to invest yourself in it and work together to deliver it. Encourage each other. If someone's flagging, then bolster them up.
You will make mistakes, but learn from your mistakes and keep going.
And just one story before we wrap this up. One story I want to share is that we were feeling pretty exhausted and pretty low at one point during the project, and I mentioned it to David Jackson, our CIO, that people were feeling despondent and worried about how quickly we were trying to get this project done, and like, were they going to deliver it? So he pulled us all together into they call it the cone of silence, and he said, okay, tell me. So go around to each one of you, tell me what's troubling you, what's the thing worrying you the most. He took everything on board one by one and shouldered the burden for us. We felt supported because he asked us, he heard us, he listened, and he supported us, and that's all we needed. So I would say use that tool if you're in that position like David was, that you've got a project, things are like flagging. Use that to support your project and support your people.
And thank you for listening to us today.
Thanks, guys. What an amazing journey. You've given us so much information. It's proved a very hot topic. We've got lots of questions, but I'm conscious that we are running to just slightly over time. So I'll ask a couple, and then we might follow up with the rest of them and share them around through via email or through the chat. So first up, Arthur has asked, is this SharePoint online or on-premise? How are your SharePoint storage costs?
SharePoint is online. Yes, our SharePoint storage costs keep growing as our holdings keep growing. I'm not exactly sure. That would be a question for our CIO about exactly how much we pay. But I do know he keeps telling me that we need to delete things. So we need to get our digital archiving up and running. That's one of our projects for next financial year.
Yeah. Great. Leela's asked what the council size is in terms of total number of staff.
I think it's about 600, just over 600 now.
And there's lots of people wanting tips or provide examples. One of them is, can you give one example of how you used AI in the project?
We use, as Ruth mentioned, we use Exidy to process our incoming mail. And Exidy is a program, so everything incoming goes through their program called OMail. And that uses AI and business rules to classify the documents. So, when you register a document, you have like 5 or 6 or 7 metadata fields that you fill in. It will do, we've found 50% of things just go straight through. We don't touch them. And the other 50%, we might have to do 1 or 2 or 3 fields, and we call those exceptions. But yeah, that's how we use AI. We are investigating different things. We have Cardinia Shire has just adopted an AI policy, and we've got Copilot available for our staff.
Fantastic. Maybe one last question, and then we'll follow up on the rest. So, what advice do you have to get IT on board for this sort of project?
Talk with them. That's it. It's communication. It's about building the relationship.
That's fast they were on board because we had our CIO, and IM and IT sit together in one business unit. So our CIO was the one driving the project. So he just put us in a room together. And yes, the word file, that means different to everybody too. But yeah, that's.
And remember, Alison and I were resistant at first. It's like, how could you get rid of our CM9? So we were the ones that had to be brought on board.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I'll pass back to Justine to wrap us up.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruth and Alison, for a really interesting story of the journey that you took and being persuaded as to the benefits of 365 and the way it's made your work easier, I guess. And lots of interesting questions in the chat, I note as well. So obviously other people have really enjoyed it as well. So that concludes all of our presentations today. I'd like to thank again all of our speakers for presenting today. Lots of different stories for us to take something away from. And thank you to everyone who was able to join us in person or who was able to join us online. And I look forward to seeing you all again at a future RMN event. So thanks to everybody.